Hello, this is Max Drake. I'd like to talk to you about this map that I've been developing through here. I'd started off getting interested, well, when we're going into lockdown, I started to look at the data that was coming through from the Ministry of Health. And what they actually had was just a very long table of the confirmed and the probables, and it had a date and when they were infected, gender, age, area, and which region they were in. Now, when I first looked at this, I suddenly thought, well, okay, then I can go to something like a map box or a Google Maps, and actually they've actually got the regions through here of all the different region areas. I think there's 16 of them, and then you can stick a pin in there, and then you can actually put a whole load of data onto all of those things there. And you sort of think, yeah, that's the map that I wanted. The reason why I was doing that was that at the time there was nobody who was actually putting maps out into the region through there. So anyway, I started to look at that, and then I was suddenly thinking, well, no, I want to go a step further. I want to start looking at colouring in the regions like this, so that I can actually say, oh, well, look, this is where there's more of them, this is where there's less cases. So, and I learnt on the way through, I'm just going to use Control, Shift and C, and that brings up the developers console inside Firefox. I can actually go through, and I learnt about these things called paths. And inside the path, you can actually, you look at the path through there, you see that's just a whole load of point coordinates that you go around, that you make a line, and this one's an enclosed line that you can then fill with a colour. So therefore you can do different colours and say, oh, well, you've got different regions. These ones here are grey because there were none in that particular point at that point in time. Now in the Chatham Islands, nothing either. But you could start seeing which regions were actually getting the number of colours. So that was great, and I actually did that, and I got some data, and I put it on there, and I think I put some numbers on there. And then I thought, yes, well done, that boy. And then what actually happened, mine were a gradation of oranges. And then the next day when I was looking at updating, I was just about finishing off the information. I was going to update the information to be that day. And the next day they came out with a map somewhere. There's their map. Their map. Now their map, when they came up with it, first of all, I was a bit mogador because this is just an image. So therefore, if I just go in and go Control Shift and C on that one there, and I go and select that, I'm just getting an object. It's just an image. If you just go through there, it's a JPEG. So that's what it was. So I couldn't actually get any of the polylines off that. So I ended up going to another site. Now here's another site that's actually got this, and this is a news website that's actually doing something here. I can go into that, and I can go and grab their polylines. Now the thing is that the things like Mapbox and things, they only have regions. They don't have the district health boards, and that's when they remap these things to the district health boards, and the boundaries all changed. So that drove me completely cracked. So that's when I actually had to go through and find all of those different ones. So on this one here, you can see the different regions coming through here. So I can actually go and grab them and go and snatch them off here. So if we go through to there, there's the path on that one there, and the reality is it's two paths. There's that path and there's that path there. So I actually had to grab the data and then do that. Don't particularly like this map because, again, it's got this hover through here, and this is done with JavaScript. So this is one where if you look at the code inside here, it's calling off a whole lot of calling off some scripts. So it's going to this site here and loading up this JavaScript through here and all this. And what I've found, I don't do a lot of this stuff, or I play around with it, so I'm not constantly updating and things. So I'm not managing a lot of my websites. So I've come back to other things that I've done, like maps, or I've done other things, and they've crashed because they've gone and updated the code and it doesn't relate to what I've done, and so some of the things have been depreciated, so I've got to rewrite the code to make the blooming thing work, which is a bit of a nuisance. So I try now. So here you see this has got these ones through here where they're going through and calling other websites to go and get some of these things. So if we look at some of these codes through here, or some of the JavaScript, a lot of it has been minified. That's why I'm trying to look for one there's a bit of a JavaScript going through there. Let's just see if that one there works. So if we look at that, that's just minified JavaScript or something. Oh, no, it's not going to let me through to that. You'll see it's minified JavaScript going through on some of those things. And they can be a bit of a pain trying to, they're links I'm looking at. I'm not looking at links. I should be looking at scripts. And I should be looking at, here's one which is a minified JavaScript, so that one should work fine. Some will be on their site and the rest of them are like that. So if they can change something in here, it could actually break what I'm actually doing. So what I've been trying to do is do one of the things. Now what I do like with this is this hover, and I like the fact that they've got the header with the name of the district, and then they've got the numbers coming through there, and I wanted to do something like that as well. On my one that I've actually got here at the moment, I'm actually using a very crude form of doing that using title. And title is, if you hover over here, you'll see that that comes through as a title. If you hover over that, that comes through as a title. So if we just go back to that website there and just go down to the bottom of the head, you'll see, what a pain. It's in the head somewhere, and you'll see a thing called title, and in that title, there it is there. That is the text that you'll see when you come up into that hover box on the tab. So I've used that inside my map, just both in the region area and also in the dot area, so that I can do that. So the way that I built this is that I've ended up with those paths. Now if we actually just look at the code on here and go to the actual file that does all of that, this is quite a hard thing to actually work inside. Now if we look at this, the basic part of this, it has a bit of header stuff just saying, you know, it's an HTML, and it's got a bit of CSS in there, and then it's got these regions. It's got the map inside an SVG, and it's got the polylines, which is a whole lot of paths and things that it's doing, and then it's doing some opacity with those things, and then it's got these little hover boxes through the titles going through there. We've then got borders which differentiate the different parts of the between the different polyline areas of the regions, and then we've got these things called lates, which are just objects which are just blobby areas on top, and just to give a bit more texture to the, or granularity to the maps. Then it's got some labels, which is actually labeling the different areas, and then it's got the dots, which are actually the size of the dots, which have also got the size of the numbers and of you know, how many cases there are through there, and it's also got a bit of the title coming through there, giving an extra bit of information. But if we try looking at some of those, because some of these paths are so long and they're all on the same line, you see you've got to come out an awful long way to be able to read that. So if we want to try and edit this file, this could be quite painful, especially since the bits that we want are after the end of the path. If we just find a bit of the path, is we want to say that it's green, so we want to say what the color is, and at the beginning we've said what the opacity is and stuff like that. Now one thing we could do is we could actually just grab that information, go into something like a pretty file through that, and undo, delete, and just go V into there and go prettyfy, and if we just go and select all of that and go copy and take it into there, we start tidying that information up. That's okay to a point, but you still find that these paths are bloody long, and a lot of the information is somewhere right the way across the page somewhere, so they can be quite a nuisance to manage. So what I did was I started to use Excel. Now inside Excel, it does two jobs here. One of the things it's doing is doing an import and doing a web scrape. So one of the things inside the data, I've got a URL going through there, and what I'm doing is I can actually just come through and make a new sheet. Sorry, I'll just come back to any one to do. I just come to the top of that one there. I'm coming through and getting a URL, and inside there I'll actually just say from the web, and then I'll give it that website, and it'll go and look for that website. And this gets all a bit tantrumy with me, and you can do two things with that. The first thing you can do is you can select the whole container, so it selects everything on that page. Or if there are nicely formatted tables, we just unclick that, cancel to that, know what's going to happen there. If there's a table in there somewhere, you can actually select the individual bugger. You can select the individual tables. So anyway, I'm pulling the data, so all I need to do is just update that data each day and just do a refresh. And inside, once you actually got your table with the import, I put import into here where it's pulling information in. This one happens to be from Wikipedia, and Wikipedia don't do tables very well, so they just drags in the whole. It just uses lists more than tables, and so you can actually just drag in the whole site, and then because it's an import one, you can just link across to another sheet to actually pull that data, the data that you want in, which is this particular bit is what I want through here. So you can refresh all of these at any time that you want, and then you can actually just bring another one here called tables, and then you can set up that one and bring all your tables in. So you've got your tables in a particular area in a particular way that you can start manipulating the information that you want. So that's one thing. So first of all, I can pull in the updated information, and this is the information that I'm using on this one here. So I can actually just do a refresh. Next day it comes through, those numbers are actually doing. And if they haven't moved them up on anything, it should pull them in quite nicely. So the next thing I do is I actually start writing my HTML for the header through the side here. And I write it through the side, and then I call it across into this column. So I'm actually this, so you'll see this is just calling this column here. So it's calling C81 all the way down. So what I can actually do now is that I can actually start writing the lines of scripts that I want. So about the opacity, I can see about the color that I want. I can put in all of the paths. Now the nice thing with the paths with this, if we just come into here, these paths, and look how long that path is. It's coming right the way through there. But as long as there's a bit of text in the next one, it's just sitting in a cell. Now all of that is just an object that we need to make up. If I'm working in here, I just got to see the whole bloody string, which can be a right pain in the bum, or then I've got to break it and then add something on the next line down. With Excel, you just stick it into a cell and there it is. So here, all I do is, with all of these ones, is I start building up my formula that I actually want, which is just sticking a whole lot of things together in concatenation. Now, to do that opacity through there, you actually want the thing to be opacity 1. You can say, what's the biggest number that I've got? So what I can actually do is I can start defining things by the darkest and the thing. So I've got lots of people through here and I've got not that many people through there. But when we actually look at the website, there's only one person here and yet there's 129. So if you look at that opacity being full saturated colors, so solid, and then you say that's transparent, this would actually turn invisible. And you wouldn't see it for the background, so it would be too vague. And you can see the board this side, but you'd need the outline on the other side to make it clearer. So what I did instead was I started off with a set minimum opacity. So inside that formula, I actually ended up with, it starts off at 25 opacity, and then it goes and looks at the number that's in there and then moves it for another opacity. Now you can see some of these have gone over 1, so it doesn't matter, because since opacity is only between 1 and 3, well, this could be 1,000 or 1,000,000 and it will still only show as 1. So from that point of view, it's not going to get any more saturated than solid. The other thing that I can do on here is that I can quickly play with the colours. So instead of actually saying Auckland, which is that bit there, and the reason I made that another colour is because it's so small in there, and because the colours are very similar to this, it would just merge all the way through and you wouldn't differentiate the different regions. So I've just popped that out to there. But that's a bit too loud, so I'm going to actually make it, instead of red, I'm going to make it orange. And then the green, I'm going to say, oh, well, instead of green, I'm actually going to go for blue. So I want different grades of blue in there instead. So that's what I'm going to do with there. For the borders, again, with the borders on those paths that I've got there, I can actually change the color within them, and I can change the line thickness as well. So let's just make that line thickness 7, which is going to be ridiculous. So because I've actually just done a concatenation with all of those things, I can actually select that column, and that's basically the whole code. So I can actually go and paste that into there, go save, run that file in the browser. Oh, sorry, I'm going to run it over here. Beg your pardon. I'm going to run it here because that one there is being run off my server. This one here is being run here. So you can see these big horrible blurry lines, and the blue doesn't come, and then the orange goes through there, and all of those ones go a bit wonk. So I can start tweaking it as I want. And again, you see where these texts are and where the bubbles are on some of these. I might want to adjust those. And also these bubbles, as things get bigger, they could come and overwhelm them. So again, with all of those little tweaky adjustments, trying to manage that inside here can be a bit of a pain. So instead, if you've got it all joined up here, for one, I'm pulling in the data through the import data from the web, and then the second thing is here is I'm actually just adjusting these as to what I need to do. So the first thing that I'd actually adjusted on that other one, and I can't remember what I'd actually done. I'd made the stroke path 0.75, and then the other one was I actually just changed the colors on the other ones through the top there, and I should move the colors to the front instead of, and that was green. And I could do different colors or have each of them as a different gradation, but I'm using the opacity to control the saturation of the color. The other thing that I actually found that I actually had to mess around with is, you see on here where you've got the text, you've actually got some coordinates saying where that text is, and the same also with the dot as well. And with the dot as well, there's two things happening in the dot. Is one, I'm using the size of the circle is based, I've got a minimum size because again, there's that number one. If you had one there up to 127, you can see the number would be way bigger than the actual dot size. So therefore you've got to have a minimum size on that. So what I've done on that one is that I preset, it starts off at 12.5, and then I use the multiplier of that thing. Now, there could be in the future, but again, where I've aligned the text up, and the text is actually aligned from here. So this is where these numbers come through. They come through from this point here, and then the dot sizes are these points here. Now, I've got them side by side just here, because what actually happens, I can pull that to the side here, and I can start looking at where I want to adjust these ones too. So if I wanted to adjust that piece of text and I wanted to adjust a dot size or something like that. Now again, this is the second thing with the dot size here. As these numbers get bigger, there's a high potential that these will start obscuring the text. So what I could do with that is I could come in here and I could readjust all of these, but that's very, very time consuming. And the reason why those colors are different is if I'd altered something before I'd run the code, I'd highlight it here. So if it didn't work, I could go back and quickly adjust them and find those quite quickly. Is that I can also change the formula on the circle size here and just say at the moment I've got a minimum of 12.5 and then it gets bigger, just so to make sure that the numbers fit inside the color, and then I can actually fix a maximum and so make sure that the thing does. So I can do that via a formula instead. So having to do that inside the file there can be a bit of a nuisance. The other thing as well that I've got, and the nice thing within Excel, so not only am I managing things in there, is that I've got the thing which is the tooltips. Now inside the tooltips, I'm building them up in another side here. Now I'm using a concatenation and I'm pulling this population data out of a wiki import table. I think it's somewhere around here somewhere. I think that's import the population information that I'm pulling through from there. I've got the confirmed numbers from the table. I've got the new numbers for today. I've got the numbers who are hospitalized in which particular region that they're hospitalized in. Now, they aren't actually giving the data out by the number that have recovered by region at the moment. That's just national overall, and there may be deaths. So we actually know there's been one death. Very luckily that there's only been so few, and I hope it does stay few. The people here are doing a fantastic job. I can add those extra columns and add those in. So at this point in time, I'm actually doing that hover thing. Now what I've done here, so I've built all of that up, but I'm putting it into two areas. I'm putting it inside the dots. I'm putting all that data through there, and I'm also putting it through into the regions as well. And it's only one bit of code that I'm doing. So if we just look at that bit of code, what it's doing is it's going and calling that toolbar tip there. Now I could also suddenly say, well, actually I want to add that to my labels. So not only do I want it there, I also want it on the labels, but I want it, in fact I've actually got it on the labels. I can take it off the label. So I could have taken off. So I can actually say I actually want it after this G point here. So this is the first point, which is a translation. This is the text that we want to do over the title bit that we've got through there. And let's just say actually we don't want that through there. So because we've got it in there as such, we want that tooltips. We're suddenly saying, well, actually we don't want the tooltips through there. So just at the moment, I'll just go off and hover onto the one through there. So if I hover over the text, if I hover over the dot, and if I hover over the region, what's happening there? Not coming on. Oh, there it is. It's coming. So I think there's a bit of a movement, something there. It hovers over the region, but you're suddenly saying, well, that's a bit of an overkill, and I don't want it in. I don't want to load up my file too much. So I can actually just go into there. And which one's that on? That's on there. So this is on this one here. I can just take that out of there. Have I got two commas or one? One. Enter. And then I can actually just drag that down. And therefore I've just updated all of that bit of code through there. Now I can actually just copy that all the way through and just go through there, select all, V, update, and if I just go to my map now and just do a refresh on that, if I hover over that, it's there. If I hover over that, nothing happens. If I hover over here, it's coming through as well. So again, it's quite quickly to go through, and it's quite quickly to do changes through quite a big areas. You know, again, if you were doing it through here, you'd need to do the search, find and replace, and doing that, and actually making sure that you've got the right thing. That was going to go and overwrite something somewhere else. So it took a little while to actually set this up, but once it's set up, it's actually easy to go and modify things. And working in Excel with this is quite good from the point of view if you're playing with the data first of all and just trying to get the feel of the data. If I'd have actually just tried to put it in something like and maybe the next step is to put it in a database on the server so that it actually just pulls in and make a file with a bit of JavaScript or something, or bring in an XML and a bit of PHP and bring it in to the map, which would be in the HTML, and then bring in a bit of using the PHP to actually pull the data from the database and actually display it onto that. So that would be the next thing, which some of the other things are done. In fact, the people in here have gone to the next phase of actually using a dashboard, but they're using a third-party one. They're using the ArcGIS, who've got a lot of these things all set up. So that's the vendors for that. Mine is just an all just made up myself. Now I made this up. If I'm happy with these colors and all of these things and stuff, I can actually now copy this and go and put it onto my server. So I just copy that one file and bring it across. So the one negative thing with these hover toolbars is that they work on a desktop, but I don't think they work on a mobile phone, which is a bit of a shame. And it's nice to have that other level of data. You know, from the point of view of that map there, I find that's too simplistic. I like the colors on here that actually give you an idea of where things are changing or where activity parts are. I like the idea that this is defined. This, it would, instead of being overwhelmed. Other ones where I've seen where this is the same color, it just gets overwhelmed completely by it. The bit where these are not disappearing into the background because the numbers are so low, you've got that, and you've got extra information. So there's enough stuff on there. It's informative. You can see which particular place it pertains to because some of these are values through there. I did think about using lines, but I thought that was a bit distracting, a bit noisy. You know, this one I might want to move across here a little bit closer. But once you've actually done the tweaking and you've got all of those refinements, you've actually got the code set up as to what you're doing. And then once you've got that code set up, you're actually only dragging in a little bit of information coming through. So you're not updating too many things. A lot of these things are now fixed as to what you want. The only thing which you're updating is just inside this part here is something like the numbers. So you can actually manage that quite easily through those sorts of things. The other thing that it takes a little while to set up, but once it's there, it's very, very quick to start tweaking and doing. Again, if you want a different theme or something like that, it's to do. And this is something that is a sort of boundaries that I couldn't get on a normal map. And so the only other thing that I could do is sort of put a pin with a bit of text, with a bit of a bubble on it. But then I couldn't do the colouring of the regions and stuff. So I'm happy with where this is. I hope this has been of interest to you. If you like it, can you please give a thumbs up? Thank you very much.